Welcome to part 2 of the Aquadecor background video series. I'm so happy to give this video to you guys because I finally got everything put together for this tank and it looks great. So I'm going to show you how I put everything together, how I silicone the glue to the back of each piece, and then I'll give you a tour. So let's get started. Each piece that you get from Aquadecor has these circles on the back, and those are just the spots where you're supposed to apply the silicone before applying your piece to the glass. And wherever you get your silicone from, you just want to make sure that it's 100% aquarium safe. And by that I mean something that's high performance, excellent adhesion, and can withstand the high amount of stress and pressure of whatever size tank you might get for it, and the silicone won't shrink or crack. And here I'm just kind of giving you a rundown of how I apply the silicone to this piece. The silicone is really clear, so you really can't see, but I really did cover each circle before applying each piece to the glass. And this is piece number 1, by the way. One helpful tip that I can give to you guys if you ever look into buying one of these backgrounds for your aquarium is that it's okay to apply a generous amount of silicone to the back of each piece before applying it to the glass. Whenever I first started, I probably applied a little bit more on the lighter side just because I was trying to be careful. But as I went along, I started to realize that adding more silicone actually benefited me on where I wanted to get it positioned for each piece as I went along in order from 1 through 7. It's a little intimidating at first. Once you start getting the hang of it and get a rhythm going, then everything kind of starts to pan out and everything gets put in place the way you like it. Now this third piece and the next fourth piece I was actually the most concerned about, just because I wanted to be real particular about how these were put in place, because both of these pieces is where the intake of the filter goes in the heater. So I wanted to make sure that everything squared up, everything was lined up, so that way this piece goes directly over top and everything was in place where it needed to be, so everything would function correctly as far as filtration goes, and of course how the piece looks in general. These two pieces for me personally was the most challenging. I spent a lot of time on them, but I wanted to make sure that I was 100% satisfied and that I wouldn't have to come back down the road and have to fix something later, because I feel like if I would have had to do that, it would have been a nightmare. So, as you can tell, I'm spending quite a bit of time to make sure that these two pieces are where they need to be. Yeah, there we go. Easy peasy, right? A helpful side note for you guys, if you decide to ever buy one of these backgrounds from Aquadecor and kind of give you a peace of mind, is communication is through email. But what they do is they ask your specific measurements from the inside of your tank. So that way, before they even start making your product, that they make sure that each piece fits exactly how they're supposed to on the inside of your tank. So that way you don't have any complications when you start applying these to the back, that everything fits exactly how it's supposed to. This second to last piece I was putting on wasn't hard to put onto the glass, but was just awkward to put inside the tank before applying it to the glass, because it was so big. You had those dividers on the top part of the tank, and then just to kind of slide it into place without accidentally sticking it to something else you don't want it to stick to. But once I got past that and was careful with it, you know, slow and steady wins the race, it all worked out. And here we are. Last but not least, lucky number 7. Now, this may seem like a lot of work and intimidating, but in all reality, a little time and patience, it really actually wasn't that bad to do. It might be a little nerve-wracking to start off with, but like I said, once you get a rhythm going and you get all the pieces set in place of where you want to, and just take your time, then everything will look great. And there we go. Alright, well, here's how everything looks with everything applied to the back. And I do apologize for the reflection. This tank is in a high windowed area, but I wanted to try to get a decent amount of lighting so you guys could see everything. But here's a better look at it from the top part of the tank. That's where that filter and the heater goes. And here's just kind of a top view of how everything looks so far. And I thought this was a nice side view of how the 3D background looks from this angle. Now, Aquadecor recommends before adding any type of substrate or water that you wait at least 48 hours or more until you start doing any of this stuff. That way it gives time for the silicone to set and make sure nothing else happens. And here I'm kind of giving you guys a little close-up view from the top to bottom of where the filter and the heater goes. But all in all, I think this is going to work out. And I actually used only one tube of silicone. Right here where I'm pointing is how much silicone I had left. So I didn't even use this second bottle. So I can save that for later if need be. And here's a quick rundown of all the rocks I got with my background as well. And that's going to be a very nice added touch at the very end of all this. Remember, each one of these rocks has these holes in them, so that way they fill up with water, so wherever you position them in the tank, that they stay where they need to be. Alright, next step, filtration. And what bit of filtration can I start out with but an FX6? You can't go wrong with them. They are pricey, so get them at a discounted price. No pun intended. Get it? Price tag aquariums? Okay, anyways. Getting all this set up took a while too. A lot of planning for this as well. But once I got it set up, I was pretty happy with it. So I wanted to give you guys one final look here of how the heater and the intake to the FX6 went. And that intake is kind of in the center, and the heater's right there obviously, and that intake is kind of in the center of both those 4 and 5 pieces where that netting is, so that way it sucks all that water in from the center of those. And then that's where the output is, on the far left side of the opposite side of the tank. And that's just a personal preference for this setup in particular. But this is how everything is kind of looking before I start adding substrate and water. And remember to wait 48 hours or more before adding any of these. And the substrate that I use is this CaribSea Arag-Alive Fiji Pink. I've used it before, and I'm using it again because I like it that much. So, here we go. 2.5 days later, we're filling up the tank and adding the substrate. And one thing I really do like about using this type of sand is that it has a little bit of beneficial bacteria inside the bag already, so it helps cycle as a tank faster. And I really like that about this. And the look of it, as a personal preference, is kind of a favorite of mine as well. This is a 125-gallon tank, and I started off with 4 bags of sand. And I thought that would be enough, especially with the 3D background. It would kind of help alleviate some of the sand that would be inside the tank. But I actually ended up buying 2 more bags because I'm a huge fan of having deeper substrate, especially with any type of cichlids where they like to dig up in the sand and everything. And also, whenever you have a deeper substrate, it actually holds a lot of that beneficial bacteria within that substrate. And I think that really is an added bonus when having the sand like this. Another thing I like about these bags of sand is they include these magnet clarifiers to help you clear the cloudy water. But every so often you get a bag that either doesn't have one in it or it's just broken up and unusable. I do have a video on that, and I'll try to leave a card up there in the top corner if you guys want to check that out and how to clear cloudy water fast, because there is some product out there that I've used and it worked really well. But nonetheless, I lucked out because most of the bags that I used had those magnet clarifiers in there. So it turned out really well even after the first day or so. Alright, well, the first 4 bags of sand are in, so now it's just time to play the waiting game until the tank is filled up. Alright, looks good so far. If any of you guys put together a fairly large tank, 125 gallon plus, to where everything about that tank had to be perfect down to the last detail, and that's how I felt about setting this one up. That everything down to the last little bit had to be perfect. Alright, tank is all filled up. Now this was not the next day, but as you can see it was getting dark in the evening, so I just had to turn some lights on. But next step is to start that FX6 and getting some water cycled. So here we go. If any of you are unfamiliar with how the FX filter series works, they start out and run for a little bit and then stop, and then they pick up and run again. And that's just to make sure that all the air pockets are clear and all the water is running thoroughly through the filter. And it actually does this on a regular basis, so don't freak out whenever it stops and then starts back up again. That's normal. But filter's running good, so that's a plus. And what I'm adding now is Seachem Prime, which removes any chlorine or chloramine that might be in the water. It also detoxifies ammonia. And what it also does is it will detoxify any heavy metals found in tap water at typical concentration levels. It's non-acidic and will not affect your pH. I highly recommend this product to starting up any tank and any water changes. And what I'm adding here is those magnet clarifiers that came with each one of the bags. And like I said, I had 4 of them. And the correct way to do this is to add one individual bag and mix it with a container of aquarium water and then add it into the tank itself. So that's what I'm doing here. That way you get the most mixed concentration to add to clarify your water. And this stuff works, trust me. I've used it several times and it's worked every time. And what I'm doing here is I had some pre-sponge filters that was attached to other filters that I had from aquariums, and I'm just squeezing these filters out to add more beneficial bacteria to the tank to help make it cycle faster. And that's just a helpful tip that I do with any new tank, so you can add fish sooner rather than later. And these little sponges hold quite a bit of beneficial bacteria, so they're definitely helping cycling your tank. And here we are, all done for the evening. And this is actually how the tank looks before the next day. So it really doesn't look too bad as far as cloudiness goes. And here we are, the very next day. And look how much that water has cleared up. And on top of that, with this water being this clear within a day, that's proof that the filter is working correctly and everything is working as it should. And I even added a wave maker on the top right corner of that tank just for some added surface agitation. That way there's no dead spots. But this is looking really good, and I can't wait to get this done with all the rocks in it. And here's the sticker that I got from Aquadecor, so I thought I'd show that off as well. So what do you guys think? Have I convinced you guys to get one of these backgrounds yet? Because I know if I was watching, I'd be like, man, I gotta get one of those. And you guys are one step closer to getting a new home and living the high life. So I hope you guys have enjoyed watching me do this too. Thank you guys so much for watching part 2 of this video series. There'll be a part 3 when I actually add my Frontosa's Blue Dolphin and Yellow Lab into this tank. And then you can actually get the full picture between the fish and adding the rocks that go into it as well. So that'll be part 3. So keep an eye out for that, and we'll see you on the next one. Price tag out.